So we got to celebrate.
And all the tourists think that we still have Simchas.
Yeah. Okay.
He's got everyone should have Simcha.
Amen. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we pretty much we pretty much talked about this issue of the elevator, right? And we went over a little bit of the different opinions as to whether this is considered to be a regular, a common oines or an uncommon oines. And Rav Sharaga just basically concluded it all depends on what the condition of the elevator is in general. If it's in tip-top condition, it's been properly maintained, it was completely unexpected, so then the hall owner should not be held responsible. If it's a temperamental elevator and it was something that they already knew about and it hasn't really been that well maintained, or there's a piece, it's an old, thing, so then the hall owner would have a higher level of liability, and that would be determined by a beis din. Let's look at our next shaila. Ha'im yesh mitzvat biyomot titein scharo afilu al avoda kala. Is there an obligation to fulfill the mitzvah of paying a laborer on the day that the services are rendered? See, this is a very important halacha that's in the Torah that a lot of Jews are somewhat ignorant about, and that is that the Torah says that if someone does a job for you, payment is due immediately upon completion of the job. By sundown of that day, you have to pay the person, unless contractually you arrange otherwise. But if there are no contractual arrangements, it's a biblical commandment. Biyomoti tein scharo v'lo tavo alav hashemesh. It's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah. It's a chiyuv. On that very day, you shall give him his wages, and do not allow the sun to set on him.
And if you don't, it's an affair. Like, it's not just a nice thing.
Yeah, you violate a mitzvah saseh. So,
what does it mean good for you? If I buy something from Marv, as a seller, and we don't have any terms on it.
We're not talking about sales. We're talking about
labor.
Yeah, services rendered. Yeah, you hire Marv. Yeah, Marv, you ask Marv, please look over a contract for me. Marv says it's going to take me 3 hours to do this work.
Yeah.
And he finishes. You owe him the bill right away. Okay, you owe him for the hourly rate as soon as he provides you with his legal opinion. Okay, as partial as we are to lawyers, yeah, right.
And Mark doesn't charge for his input to the share.
Charge for the whole day.
Right.
That's why we love lawyers.
That's right. There's no way to know. But a guy fixes your car, whatever a plumber renders services, payment is due immediately. So here's the question. What is that? Does that include all kinds of jobs? What about menial tasks? First of all, is it completely obligatory, or is it just a mitzvah? Meaning that if I do it, great. If I don't do it, no. V'ha'im halokeach babysitter l'sha o sha'atayim. What if the laborer? That's what they call it today in Israel. What if the person who I'm paying is a babysitter for an hour or two? Yesh bazeh mitzvah shel biyomot titein scharo. Do I still have this obligation from the Torah to pay her immediately upon rendering of services?
Why would you think not, if it's
Yeah.
not saying?
Yeah, that in particular, I would think,
This
yes.
is so clear, it's an essay, like, why are we
Yeah,
mentioning
it's
this?
a good question.
Okay,
Gonna
so
So like,
let's,
it's a question, like, I understand that we're talking, whatever. Like, don't let the sun go down on this person and not pay them.
it's a
Elton John gave them some.
We hold by him all the
We hold
time.
by him in certain.
well, I've always found that idea to be fascinating. Don't let the sun go down on him. Velo tavo alav hashemesh, right?
So if it's a woman, it's okay.
No,
Now,
Rabbi, are you sharing? Because we have missed the, we never.
Barry just said.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I maybe not share the screen? Okay, sorry about that. Thank you for letting me know. Okay. So I hope that's better. Okay, there we go. So, but what but the Torah and what's his name? Bernie Taupin, who wrote those lyrics. I don't know whether he was looking at the Chumash when he was writing it, but he's a Yid. But
really?
I'm pretty sure he
Yeah, I
is.
think so.
Yeah. Bernie
Bernie?
Taupin.
Sanders too.
You're causing the sun to set on this person because he's waiting to go home and bring home the cash for his family. You don't know what his needs are. So how can you deprive him after he's done this work? I mean, that's really, you're literally causing the sun to go down on him. Okay, anyway. Yesh mitzvahs aseh v'chova lifroas char schir bizmano. So number one, it's a mitzvahs aseh. Number two, it's an obligation to pay a day laborer for his time. Dahainu adam she'avad etzel chavero v'lo mishaneh eza avoda avad kasha o kala. So again, it's anytime a person renders services or work, it doesn't matter what level of work it is, heavy, light, even an attorney, even a lawyer, right? Doesn't matter how light it is. Below Mishnah, and we're ribbing Marv a little bit today. Below Mishnah im hapoel ashir o ani, and it doesn't matter whether the worker is wealthy or poor. It's not a question of like rachmanis on this poor laborer. Even if he's wearing a $3,000 suit and he's rendering services, you still the Torah obligation still applies. Mitzvah l'shalim lo et scharo bizman kifi shesikei mito. You have an obligation to pay him his wages at the time as based on what was agreed. Kamo shekasuf batorah biyomot itein scharo v'lo tavo alav hashemesh. On his day you shall give him his wages. Do not allow the sun to come down on him. Ki anihu, because he is poor. Ve'elav hu noseit nafsho. And it is towards the employer that he places his soul's dependency. V'lo yikra alecha el Hashem v'haya v'chachet. If you don't pay him, he will call out to God, and the sin will be on you. V'darshu chazal ve'elav hu noseit nafsho. Our sages interpret the latter part of that phrase. Upon his employer, he is placing his soul's dependency. The kol hakovesh schar sachir ki'ilu noitel nafsho mimenu. That if you withhold the wages from a worker, it is as if you're taking his soul. Lachein pashut dafilu al avodah kala kagon babysitter l'sha'u chedoime. And therefore, even the lightest of services, like a babysitter for an hour and the like, chayav l'shalim la ba'oto hayom, you have to pay her on that day itself. Uvazeh yikayim mitzvat biyomot itein scharo. And that's how you fulfill the mitzvah of the Torah. On that self same day, you shall give him his wages. Now let's just see if there's anything to add over here. So Rav Asi says, even if you, from the Gemara, even if you only hire a guy to pick one cluster of grapes, over mishum baltolin, you are subject to the prohibition of baltolin. V'chein pasuk b'sefer ahavas chesed. Well,
No, the food could be the salary. Whatever's
yeah,
arranged.
whatever the arrangement is, but you get the gist. And the Chafetz Chaim Sefer Avas Chesed says the same thing, and he then says Ayin ba'avas Chesed sheherich b'chomer mitzvazu. The Chafetz Chaim was very extensive in detailing the severity of this mitzvah. He also pointed out that it doesn't matter about the guy's economic status. And then he says in footnote 3, V'chein nifsak b'shulchan aruch, and the language of the Shulchan Aruch is Sechir Sha'ot im kalas chiruto biyom yesh lo tashlum kalota hayom. He says when you hire someone, if he rendered work during the daytime, you have the entire day in which to pay him. Im kala balayla, if the work finishes at night, yesh lo tashlum kalota halayla, you have the entire night to find how you're going to pay him. So therefore, even if he's only working for an hour, for a few minutes, there's still an obligation to pay him for services rendered on that day.
So that implies if you have a babysitter on an evening, you don't have to pay them until the morning.
No, you have to pay them before the morning. You have the
Before
entire
dawn.
night to pay them.
Before dawn.
Yeah, you've got to get the money to her by the crack of dawn. So you can't send her home and then come at 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, you could, but
You might be arrested.
yeah. What? That's a good question. Does it apply to a goy? We have no reason to assume that it doesn't, because this is not an act of complete chesed. But it's a very good question whether it does or not. I don't have absolute evidence yet, one way or the other. But let's
Much better question than the babysitter.
Yeah.
As we said, like, why wouldn't you? But
Yeah.
for a goy, maybe they're not part of family. But I still think it's for services.
Yeah. It would seem based on logic that the same obligation applies. Because of Bezohar Hakadosh al Rav Hamnuna, the Kishahaya notain l'sachir et scharo haya omer lo tol et nafshecha shehivchadete biyadi tol et pigdonecha. The Zohar actually relates about Rav Hamnuna that whenever he would give a laborer his wage, he would say to him, "Take the soul that you have given to me for safekeeping." Meaning, I recognize that you've entrusted me with your livelihood by devoting the last 8 hours working for me, even though I didn't front you the money. So you've trusted me that at the end of this long day of work, of working in my kitchen or in my cellar, that you're going to get paid. And here it is. Okay. In other words, I'm faithful to give you back your soul. Vafilu im hasacher haya omer lo tishmor et hakesef haschirit biyadcha bintayim. And even if the worker had said to Rav Hamnuna, you know what, hold on to the cash. My hands are dirty. I don't want to take the money just right now. I got to go home and change, whatever. Rav Hamnuna lo hayarotza sheishar hakesef etzlo. Rav Hamnuna refused. He didn't want the money to stay with him. Ki haya oimer pikadon shel gufcha eno roi lahavkid biyadi. I don't want your body, your very essence to be left with me. The kol shekain, I wouldn't even want your body to be left with me. The kol shekain hapikadon shel nafshecha she'eno roi lahavkid biyadi. And certainly I don't want to keep your soul in my hands. Ki pikadon hanefesh eno nitan lahavkid ela biyadav shel hakadosh baruch hu kemo shekasuv biyadcha avkid ruchi. Because the safekeeping of your soul is only something that you should relinquish to God. As David HaMelech says in Tehillim, and we say it in Adon Olam, Biyadcha avkid ruchi. I place my soul in your hands, God. We should only place our soul in Hashem's hands, not leave it for safekeeping with other people, except for just that day that we're working. Gemara omeret b'masechet Sukkah. The Gemara says in Masechet Sukkah, Amar Rav, Bishvil arba'a dvarim nichsei baleibatim yotzim l'timyon. The Gemara in Sukkah says that there are 4 things, the four sinful behaviors that causes money of balabatim to get destroyed, to be lost. Al kovshei schar sachir, Number one, if you withhold a laborer's wages, val oshke schar sachir, if you oppress a laborer by telling him, come back tomorrow. I'm not sure why those are two. I'm not sure why they're two different things. It would have to take a look in Rashi for a sec. The third one is if a person removes the burden off of himself and places it on his friend. In other words, I don't want to have to be stuck with this. I'll let somebody else do it, right? Moish, you've had that experience. Moish usually bears the burden of several people, as you see how hard he works for the shul, and like Jesse. There are people who basically, part of a community, but I don't want to have anything. I don't want to get my hands dirty. I'll pay my membership and that's enough, right? And then there are people who say, I'm going to take on the burden of multiple people who just don't want to be bothered with it, right? So those who basically remove the burden off of themselves and say, let somebody else do it, that's a third thing. The al gasut haruach, and the fourth one is arrogance or egotism. Well, let me just take a look and see from the Gemara let's take a look in Rashi. What's the difference between kovesh schar sachir and oshek schar sachir? I'll just take a quick look in the.
The length of time.
I'm not sure.
The first one is you put it up for a long time. The other one's you only put it up for 24 hours.
Here, let's take a look. It's Chavtes Amid Beis. It's down somewhere. No, it's not. I got the wrong page. 1 second. Chavtes Sukkah. Oh, I pulled up Sota. I'm sorry. My vision is a little bit. There we go. Sukkah. Chavtes. Days. Here we go. Okay, let's take a look. Say the Gemara is at the very top of the page. We'll take a look at Rashi. Oshek kovesh shemidachehu b'leich v'shov. The first one is where a guy says, "Come back tomorrow." Okay, I don't have it today. Come back tomorrow. That's kovesh schar sachir. You're withholding or you're holding it back. Oshek is legamre gozel schar. You basically figure out a way to avoid paying him entirely.
The one's stealing and one's being
right.
Not paying on
So there's a double avera, right? If you never pay him, if you just never pay him for services. I had a guy, a Gentile, call me. This is a crazy case. There's a fellow who lives right here in the heart of the neighborhood, an Orthodox Jew, who is not part of our community, not part of the Bayit community. But if I told you what community it would be Lashon Hara, because you would immediately know, recognize the community.
Just tell more. Just give initials.
Last name's
And his wife called a guy to fix their washing machine. He rendered services, left them a bill. Wife said, my husband will pay it right away. Never paid. Kept calling. The guy says, what's going on? How come? Anyway, it turns out the guy never paid the bill. So this Gentile serviceman, repairman, whatever you call him, a handyman, he put on a negative report on this guy online, saying, don't let this guy hire you. He's going to stiff you.
Got it.
And then the guy went ahead and started a defamation lawsuit against him, for $30,000. it was a bill for, something like $300, whatever it was. He calls me. I don't know, like he must have figured, okay, the large synagogue in Thornhill. He called me to complain to me, and he was crying to me on the phone. He says, this is going to destroy me, financially, if I have to go through this. So here's what I did. I asked the fellow, I should have called Judge Marv. So
Is that Guido or what's Luigi?
The price just went up for the regular.
So you're not going to believe this. What happened was, I asked them to send me the complaint, with the filing, whatever it is. The lawyer is a member of our congregation.
Oh, no.
And again, none of this, no names, because this is quite.
This already.
It's like,
Change the names to protect the other side.
He's streaming.
Okay, we're not gonna hear the end.
I called the lawyer and I said, this conversation never happened, but you need to make this go away. This is the story. You need to make this go away. And he, to this fellow's credit, whose identity can never be revealed, he made it go away. Because he understood that this was wrong.
Much in order to tell us who the great guy.
No, it is. No, but it could harm his,
People going to him for
this.
help.
No, I'm saying this litigious
Guy
could go ahead and sue his lawyer.
What didn't he see that you revealed to him that he couldn't see clearly beforehand? That the guy just didn't pay his bill? What was the finish from his lawyer?
I don't know what he was thinking before, but he probably took this
Face
AH's
value.
at face value. The guy's defaming me for no reason, right? And I told him the guy rendered services and he never got paid. And apparently this guy, this from, right, with quotes, with air quotes, fellow has done this to a bunch of people. And that's just his way of living his life and providing for his for his family. Yeah. But it gives us a bad rep, but it's also important to know that, it's because of these guys that we need to learn these halachas, because there's a whole segment of our people who aren't even aware that this is part of living your life as a Jew, right? They think that, as long as it's Chalav Yisrael and Glad Kosher, I'm fine.
Yeah. They gotta have a proper hechsher, but.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. So anyway, let's get back to our subject at hand.
That's sickening story.
Okay. I'm sorry. Maybe I shouldn't have told that story. I should make that.
Any other stories?
Yeah. I got
No, I mean, you have to tell it the way that you did,
No, but that
because
shows
it's
what the whole
important
law-
for us to be sensitive to every detail. Like, this isn't a game, it's a relationship with Hashem.
Obviously, for some people.
One exception than the norm.
Yes, I think you're right, Izzy. I think it's more the exception than the norm. But even one exception is one exception too many. It's just completely unacceptable for a from Jew to
Especially when
behave
you're
this way.
from Jew.
Yeah.
What's the point of being from?
Did you get anyone to speak to him? Did you ever speak to his character or get someone to speak to him?
But-
Or no?
Like,
You
when
just
you're
called the
from, you're
lawyer,
always
that was
trying to
it.
be better, I thought that's
It's a
what.
crazy story.
By the way, 2 days after this Gentile called me, a frum couple called me and said that this person had defrauded them in his business. Apparently, this guy runs a business that
The same guy.
who runs a business.
It's a good business.
Did you and I have this
Had
conversation?
this conversation, I had the same guy in court as well, in a similar case like that where they didn't pay, right?
You can tell us, you're not a rabbi.
No, but you wrote it.
Wayne really wants to do
I-
it,
I'm
so,
with the rabbi.
just in case he calls us, like we should know.
But
That guy's a bad guy.
he's a bad guy. You see, Marv just says it, and then he's okay now because that's because you just have that sweet personality. He's a bad guy, but you see, with me, it stews and cooks and like, ooh, like
Yeah.
But-
It's a bit of a no.
what? Yeah, well, you see it. No, I think, look, the fact is that, right, you see it, but to see it with a member of the Orthodox community is just so demoralizing, right? It's like, it's heartbreaking. But,
Yeah,
Any-
like it affects us all personally.
right, but anyway, but you understand the Gemara. The Gemara says this is the reason why a Balabayit's finances go belly up, is if he's done any one of these four things. The kovshei schar sachir hainu kishabaha poel lekabel et scharo. The person who withholds the wages is when the worker comes to receive his wages. V'omer lo balabayit tavo machar. And the balabayit says, come back tomorrow, or the check is in the mail. Okay. V'docha oto b'leich v'shov. And he tells him, go home and come back later. I'll have the check for you. Okay. And people who do this, it's so despicable. The cause of Bal Haturim, the cause of Bapasuk ulachati etzdaka lifnei Hashem Elokecha. That if you look at the psukim in the Torah precedes that whole halacha of kovesh schar sachir with the words, for you it shall be an act of charity before the Lord your God. And then right afterwards, the pasuk says, lo tashok sachir ani ve'evya. Do not oppress the worker, the laborer. V'nimtza shenismechu hamilam Hashem Elokecha lo ta'ashok lelamdenu shekol ha'oshek et ta'ani ki'ilu ashak es HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So because the preceding words are Hashem Elokecha, before do not oppress, this implies that when you oppress a laborer, you're not only oppressing him, you're oppressing Hashem himself. Malveh Hashem chonein dal. That when you are benevolent to a poor person, you're benevolent to God. So the converse is also true. When you're oppressive to a person who expects being paid, you're oppressive to Hashem. It's like one of my kids, rendered services and then got stiffed. How does it make me feel? Like I feel like I want to punch out the guy, right? And Hashem gets very, very upset.
Does this apply to a project as well? Project based?
I guess whatever the calculation was.
So I'll give you an example. Last year, I called the guy to trim the trees.
Yeah.
Came by, trimmed one of the trees, and he didn't finish the other one. So.
Right. Well, the job, yeah, right. So it specifically refers to a day laborer. His payment is due at the end of the day.
I saw him paying me, he didn't finish the job.
No, but remember the
Okay.
grape example, even if he takes one cluster of grapes, you have to pay him for that.
Yeah, but he paid me.
Yeah, that was for the cluster of grapes. If I hired him to trim 5 shrubs and he only does 1, then he hasn't done the job. So,
Based on your contract.
yeah. All right, we'll have to hold it here. Thanks for the therapy. We'll have a good Shabbos, everyone.
No,
Uh,
not really.
How long ago was this?
It was a